Hello, everyone, and welcome to Come Chat at the Couch, where we're having discussions about come to the couch and chat, where we're having discussions on how we do life better together. Okay, so for us, we're discussing again how to build generational wealth. Now, last week we talked about mindset, but before I go in this week, I wanted to clarify some things in regards to what generational wealth is. So, when we're talking about building generational wealth, we're discussing how do we not only build a strong financial backbone, but we're discussing how is it that we then become wealthy in the key areas that matter. So at the end of the day, how do we make enough cash flow to cover our basic needs so that we are also wealthy in health, wealthy in our relationships, wealthy in our legacy, and ultimately wealthy in our time? You see, it makes no sense for us to gain or amass a large amount of money or amount of cars, X, Y, and Z, but to have poor health, to be unwealthy in our relationships. It makes no sense to have all this money and have your children hate you, your significant other one hate you, X, Y, and Z. So at the end of the day, we're truly trying to teach you how it is that we build generational wealth in regards to our finances, our relationships, our health, and also our time. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to be able to leave an inheritance to our children on how to actually obtain and attract money over and over. Our key thing really is how do we pass that on from generation to generation. Okay? And that's what generational wealth is. Now, in regards to last week, let's do a little recap. So last week we talked about the mindset. And in the mindset, we talked about there's only two when it comes to finance. The first mindset is the mindset of scarcity, which we have been taught, fed, and bred. Scarcity is this mindset that's based in fear, and it says that because resources are limited, then there's money. The money is limited, right? And so, in order for us to make money, we have to trade dollars for hours. That's the scarce mindset. That was what we've been taught. The abundant mindset says this: even though resources are limited, there is an unlimited amount of exchanges between people, and because there's an unlimited amount of exchanges, I can have an unlimited amount of money as long as I figure out a way to attract those exchanges of money towards myself. And we do that by creating value. You see, we understood and we talked about under the abundant mindset that at the end of the day, money is not made, money is attracted. When you look at the billionaires make millions, make thousands of dollars every minute. They don't make it, they attract it. They create something that people value. People are then willing to separate their money to pay for something they value. So if there's a pair of shoes out there, I value those, I like them, I'll separate my money to those who created it, and I'll then have the shoes. And that's what the abundant and scarce mindset states. And remember, under the scarce mindset, it's based in fear, and it's based off of I have to accumulate, I have to hold on to as much money as possible while reducing the amount of money that I spend out. That is the whole thing we talk about as far as scarcity. Now, this week, we're going to take that mindset and go into the subject of budgeting sucks. And we're going to talk about how the wealthy actually manage their money. Little surprise, they don't budget. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't know if you guys have seen Jordan the Stallion, the creator. He is the food president. He has a book full of recipes that he always gives. And I, myself, have a book of financial principles that I'm going to be reading throughout the night. So, one money principle that I want you to understand is that for us, in order for us to be wealthy, to be healthy in our wealth, we must have money saved, we must live within our means, and we must invest early, often, and always. Okay, so the problem with that is that the right principle with the wrong mindset will have you making two vastly different decisions based off of the same information. So if we have the scarcity mindset, these principles say this: I'm going to save as much money, regardless of what it is. There is no purpose. I'm going to save the money. I'm going to live within my means, but as to live in my means is going to be a reduction of expenses, and then I'm going to invest early, often, and always in the stock market, looking to have compound interest. So I invest now, So 30, 40, 50 years from now, I have a big a balance in that stock market, right? What the wealthy do is something a little different. So what I'm not saying to do is this. I'm not saying I want you to be fiscally irresponsible when I'm saying budgeting sucks and don't budget. I'm not saying that. What I'm offering is this, is that we move from living a life of budgeting to live a life that is set up by an automatic infrastructure that emphasizes two things. One, mindful cash flow management, and number two, value-based spending. So mindful cash spending is like peanut butter, and value-based spending is jelly. Tonight, we're going to have a peanut butter sandwich. There's so much information in both of them. We're just going to eat the peanut butter, and the supplemental videos, I will go into a deeper dive of the value-based spending, and then you can put together and have a nice peanut butter jelly sandwich, okay? Tonight's just the peanut butter. So, let's dive into why budgeting sucks and how we can be more efficient in managing our money. So, I want to start off by saying this. I want you to think about a person that is healthy, okay? Now, health is determined by two things, primarily. It's determined by what you eat, which is your diet. A diet is nothing more than all of the things that you eat. So if you plan for it, if you don't plan for it, your diet is your diet. It's everything that you eat, okay? And so a healthy person has a healthy diet and also works out. But oftentimes you find people, they begin to overeat, overconsume, and then over time, they amass fat on themselves, right? And if they continue to overeat, overconsume, they amass more fat, more fat, more fat, until they get to the point where they're morbidly obese. They'll then go to the doctor, and then the doctor will say, yes, you're morbidly obese, but you also have hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, right? The first thing the doctor is going to tell them to do is to lose weight. That's the first thing you have to do. Before you can address any of the other conditions, you have to address that weight. Take some of the pressure off your heart, X, Y, and Z. And so for you to cut that extra weight that's weighing you down, you have to go on a thing called a diet. You have to start dieting. Take that same analogy and put that into the wealthy framework. When we're talking about your wealth, oftentimes we start off at zero, and then what happens is a lot of times we start spending money, expenses, and we start to consume. We start to consume. After we consume, sometimes we begin to borrow to consume. When we're borrowing to consume, we then put on debt on our balance sheet. That debt is just like the fat. After a while, you get morbidly obese inside your debt. You don't know what's going on. All these other things start happening because you're morbidly obese. And at that point, you then have to start to go on a budget and begin budgeting. So I want you to understand this point. Much like diet, you only diet for two reasons, primarily, and you should only be budgeting for two reasons in life. The two reasons in life why you go on a diet is if you're morbidly obese, if everything's off the rail, you have to cut some of the weight so you can then get to a moderate weight, so you can then employ other strategies to build yourself back up to health. That's the first reason. The second reason you go on a diet, is if you are relatively healthy, but you have the beach season coming up in the summer, so you want to get those six-pack abs, right? So then you go on a diet for a short amount of time to get those abs, and then you go back to what we call mindful eating. That is the same thing with budgeting. Budgeting was never meant to be a lifestyle for us. A budgeting was meant for two things: to either one, get us back on track, or it's meant for us to have a specific goal, to hit a specific goal or dream. So maybe buying a house, maybe buying a car, or maybe buying a property. What a truly healthy person does is they're happy by living a life of mindful eating. Basically, they understand what is in bounds, what is out of bounds. They make sure they're mindful as far as what they eat. They're not counting calories. They're not on a calorie deficit, because oftentimes when you're on a dieting lifestyle, you actually undereat and you actually undernourish yourself. And that is the same thing that applies in the wealth world as well. A lot of times what we do is we start cutting back all expenses, not understanding that there are some expenses you don't want to cut because it's undernourishing your path to obtaining generational wealth and economic independence. And so today, We're going to cover how we mindfully spend our money, just as the healthy people practice how they mindfully eat to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Cool, everybody? Okay, so remember, as I mentioned, we want to have an automated infrastructure where we can do mindful cash management and value-based spending. And I mentioned we have a healthy person. Again, we want to make sure we're eating healthy and making good choices. So, first thing that I want you to do, understand, is that budgeting, traditional budgeting, has us in this minded thinking. Traditional budgeting has us in a mindset of scarcity, in which we're cutting back, we're saving money, and basically what it does is it puts us on the defensive. Okay, and we're not. If we live our life in defense mode, we'll never push ourselves forward to actually generate that wealth. So by staying in this mode of cutting and saving, right, we don't then do the things we need to do as with mindful cash management. What mindful cash management does is it focuses on efficiency, maximizing our resources, and also maximizing our cash flow. So mindful cash management is actually offensive. It's actually going on the attack and making sure we're pushing ourselves towards economic independence. And so I've said this word a couple of times tonight. I just want to clarify what economic independence is and what economic freedom is. A lot of times people use economic independence and economic freedom interchangeably, but I want you to understand they're two different things. You see, to understand and do better in the world of finance, we have to understand the language. Economic independence is more of a tangible state. It is a mental state, an abundance, but it's more so a tangible state. What economic independence says is that I have enough cash flows, enough assets that are cash flowing to cover my basic needs. So it's pretty much residual income. That's what economic independence is. Economic freedom is 100% a mindset. This mindset states that money is no longer is no longer the major driving factor that decides if I do or don't do something. At the end of the day, we'll see that we can actually have economic freedom right now if we just decide to unplug from the system and just live on the land. That's fine. That's fine. You can just do whatever you want, but we'll need to build up this economic independence so we can have that mindset and that freedom of economic freedom. Excuse me. Okay. So when it comes to doing mindful cash flow management, let's go back to the recipe book. I want you to see this. It's 7 steps. I want you to write it down. I want you to write these down. The 7 steps it takes for you to mindfully switch from budgeting to mindfully managing your flow. Number 1, you have to determine you and your partner's money personality / persona. That's number 1. Number 2, I want you to write out all of your expenses and categorize them in the expense category I'm going to mention later, but that's the number 2 step. Number 3, we must live within our means. After that, we want to create a plan to automatically transfer funds to our financial focus at that given point in time. Number 5, we want to fund our accounts on an automated schedule. Number 6, we want to link our auto transfers to a financial tracking tool. So Mint.com, I think TurboTax has one, an Excel file, wherever else. Link that to there. And last but not leastly, you want to meet bi-weekly with your partner and see where you are in and out of bounds. Okay? That's the key to us mindfully manage my cash. I'll repeat that again. So first, you want to determine you and your partner's money persona. After you've done that, you want to write out all expenses and categorize them into an expense type. And I will teach you about the different types of expenses later on. After that, we must live within our means. After that, we have to create a plan to automatically transfer funds to your financial focus. We want to fund accounts on an automated schedule. That's number 5. Number 6, we want to link our automatic transfers to a financial tool, mint.com, X, Y, and Z. And then number 7, you want to meet bi-weekly with your accountability partner and see where you are in and out of bounds. So what you spent more on, what you spent less on. Okay? So those are the 7 steps on how we get from traditional budgeting to being in mindful cash flow management. Now, before I go into details on that, I want to first mention another money principle. And it says that money has 3 purposes. Money can be spent 3 ways. Money can be spent in a way for consumption, where you're consuming. So when you're spending money to consume, it's like a one-time thing. So think about like you consume food, or you buy a purse, you buy vacation, X, Y, and Z. That's the first way money can be spent. The second way money can be spent is in a protective way, right? So that's your savings. And then the last way money can be spent is in a way that's for production, to bring in a return sometime in the future. And I mention that because I'm now going to tackle each step on how we're going to switch to mindful cash management. So the first way is we must understand that there's 4 kinds of expenses. You see, under the traditional way, we were taught that we have to cut all expenses that are unnecessary, and we have to get, cut expenses and save as much money as possible, right? Oftentimes that puts you in a bad position, because out of the 4 types of expenses we have, we only cut one of them. So your 4 expenses are this. You have destructive expenses. Destructive expenses are expenses in which you borrow to consume. So what that means is if I am using my credit card to go on vacation and I don't have the money inside of my checking account, destructive expenses. If I'm using my credit card, or if I'm borrowing money from the bank, so if I take money out my HELOC loan from the bank to buy a Suburban truck, or if I buy the latest Tesla, right? That's consumptive spending. You're not making money off of that. Eliminate, or I have to mention this, or borrowing or even spending money on vices outside of recreation. That's just a fancy way of saying don't do drugs. All right, think of the Care Bear. Drugs are whack. Okay, so yes, that's what that means. That's what destructive spendings are. We want to eliminate all of those kinds of expenditures. The second type of expenditures that we have are lifestyle expenditures. Now again, remember the golden rule: never borrow to consume. Now we're going to cover, when we talk about credit cards, the nuances beyond using credit cards, X, Y, and Z. Just give you a little sneak peek. If you have the money in the bank account, it's okay to use a credit card as long as you put it right there, okay? But we'll cover that in detail next week or the week after. Don't worry. Okay, so anyways, lifestyle expenses, right? So these expenses, you want to manage those. So oftentimes in traditional budgeting, it tells us we have to cut our lifestyle back. We have to eat. We can't go out. We can't take the vacation, X, Y, and Z, right? We have to defer life 30 years until we retire, and then we can join in full. What I'm going to tell you is, once you've done that traditional budgeting, once you've got things back on the tracks, and you're in the middle, like you're at a moderate state, do not defer. Manage that position, whereas you're putting money aside so you can still take a vacation, so you can still purchase the bags, X, Y, and Z, but do not overspend on that. Your focus is not spending money on your lifestyle, but you want to manage that, okay? But you still want to take it. A common thing that I want you to understand is this: life is meant to be enjoyed along the way. We're no longer taking that advice of putting money in the stock market, retirement plans, mutual funds, hedge funds, and waiting 30 years to retirement to enjoy. Because at the end of the day, you spent 30 years building the habit of putting money away. What do you think is going to happen 30 years from now when you actually have the money? you're still going to save. You built the habit. No, build the lifestyle where you're going to enjoy life along the way. You may not be able to have the most luxury thing, but you still enjoy things along the way as you go. Now, let me take a step back and let me mention this huge caveat. Before you can even think about using cash flow management, you need to make sure that you don't have an exorbitant amount, you're not obese and super fat, and you're dead. All right, if you are super fat and super obese and not dead, contact me and my team. We'll help get you back in shape. We'll do strategies to get you back. We have to do traditional. Budgeting to get you at least back on track. After that, after you've done that, then we can start talking about cash flow management. I don't ever want you to get in your mind that budgeting should be completely xed out. Budgeting is a tool, and utilize the tools in the right place. Oftentimes, when they're teaching us financial things, they're giving us a jackhammer to nail in a small nail. Like, they're giving you the wrong tools for the wrong things, and oftentimes you're going to break the system if you have the wrong tools because it's too much power or too less power. Again, traditional budgeting is used for two reasons: to either get yourself out the fat debt and get you to a moderate pace, or it's for you to save for a short term to achieve a short term goal. Regardless, traditional budgeting is only meant for a short term sprint. Okay. All right, let's go back into our expenses. So our second expense is our lifestyle expense. Remember, we want to manage those. We don't want to have all of our spending going towards there. Manage it, still enjoy life along the way. The third expenditure that you have is what we call protective expenses. So what we want to do is we want to address these expenses. What that means is this: protective expenses is your insurance, it's your estate planning, it's your life insurance, house insurance, it's your emergency fund, right? This is your staying power. We want to address these to make sure we don't have redundancies in there. We want to make sure that we're not spending more in this bucket than need be. You see, recall I told you traditional budgeting says to save, but to save without a purpose. Your protective expenses, what we want to do with this one, we want to save to a certain threshold. The minimum that I recommend is to have 3 to 6 months in liquidity inside of your protective expenses. Okay, 3 to 6 months, and you want to have those in a separate account that's your checking. So you want to have it maybe in a high yield savings account. I'll go into a little bit of details later on when we get to our pyramid for your financial focus on different tricks you can use for that. But at the end of the day, you want to have 3 to 6 months of expenses inside of that account. That'll give you staying power. Anything beyond 2 years, I would say you need to reallocate your money. Okay? At the end of the day, the goal really is to have 2 years worth of expenses saved inside that account, because at the end of the day, if you're in a job that you don't like, if you're in a career you don't like, or if you just feel that you've been called to do something else, you need to be able to take a year off, invest into the education, and live life as if nothing happened, and you will pull from that fund to do so. Okay? And then the fourth kind of expense that you have is your productive expenses. This is your expenses that you use to invest into cash flowing assets, to invest into your education. It's the ones you use to invest into going to conferences, to doing all the things that you need to do so you can buy and create assets to generate cash flow. So for this type of expenditure, you actually need to increase your spending in this one. So take the funds that we use in our destructive spending, where we borrow to consume, and actually rewire that to our productive, protective, and also our lifestyle expenditures. Okay? So now that we've known what our expenditures are, and now we know the steps that we have to do to attack them, the next thing we have to do is then live within our means. Now recall I mentioned that scarcity and abundance plays a factor in how we go down and make our decisions inside of these financial principles. Remember, this was the second principle I mentioned in the money rules, which is to live within your means. Now, to live within your means, what does it mean to live within your means? Feedback from the audience and on the chat. What does it mean to live within your means? Anybody? Somebody? Anybody? Anywhere? Not you. Don't overspend. Don't overspend. What else does it mean to live within your? So give me some steps to actually live within your means. How do you tell me how you live within your means? Don't overspend. How else do you live within your means? Anybody? Yes. Cut back in some areas is the other thing I heard. Don't overspend and cut back in your areas, right? So oftentimes we are told to live within our means, is to stay confined in this bubble and cut back. Let me tell you something. That has its purpose, and that is a very powerful tool, again, under those two circumstances, when you're grossly obese in your debt, or if you're trying to go to the next level for a very short term goal. That tool is absolutely necessary. But there's three ways in which we can live within our means. And we've never been taught these. The second way to live within your means is to become more efficient in your means. So, what does that mean? To become more efficient in your means allows you to free up cash flow to actually to have extra money left over by doing nothing but reallocating. And so, how do we then become more efficient in our means? We become more efficient in our means by addressing the four I's. The four I's are such: the IRS, what you pay in taxes. The second I is investments. The third I is insurance. And the last one is interest. Those are the four I's in which we can become more efficient. So let me give you an example. So say, for example, a lot of us do a lot of side projects, do a lot of side work, X, Y, and Z, right? And then we get paid on the side, right? If we were able to create an entity, LLC, whatever, right? And then still do those side gigs, the amount of tax write-offs and tax benefits we can get from that entity can help us save and retract money from the IRS. A lot of us don't do that because we don't know to do that. If you want tips and tricks how to do that, again, contact me and my team. We can show you how to do that. But at the end of the day, that could be the difference in paying, I don't know, $7,000 in taxes to getting a refund at the end of the year. Hello, happened to me, right? So at the end of the day, having an entity, having a business helps you become more efficient inside of your taxes, so you're not overpaying Uncle Sam. A lot of us, because we were taught to be a W-2 worker, right, to work for our money, exchange dollars for hours, because we do that, we don't have a lot of advantages for taxes. You get the tax advantages when you create an entity and then you render a service. Now you have some leeway to get some of those money back from taxes. At the end of the day, scarcity is the greatest robber of wealth. The second greatest robber of wealth is taxes. And unfortunately, what happens is that you have four quadrants of individuals for taxes. This is a little tangential, but I think you should know this. So you have you have the employee, you have the self-employed, the businesses, and then you have the investors, right? The employees get taxed at a 40% rate. Self-employed get taxed at 60%. The businesses, if you have a businesses specifically operating like a big business, you get taxed at 20%, and then as an investor, you get taxed at close to 0%. At the end of the day, by working your W-2, by working at W-2 and not open up an entity for services that you offer on the side, you're being taxed at a much higher rate, and you don't get to keep a lot of your money. Do you recognize that, and this is another tangential point, do you recognize that 80% of the money goes back to the government in some form of tax? You tax at every single level. The government doesn't create money, they only tax. They only get money through taxes. So that is a big lever in which you can do it. And also, a side note here, last tangential, I promise, is that you can talk to your tax advisor, but you can look back over 3 years and see and claim any deductions you missed over the past 3 years. So this is a way for you to, if you miss anything over the past 3 years, keep a tight ship. You can also reclaim some of that money. Again, that's a way for you to become more efficient inside of your means. Addressing the IRS. I am not going to go over the other ones, but I will go over one more. So I'll go over two more. So the other way I mentioned was insurance. So a good thing, a quick trick that we can use to free up more cash flow every month is to raise our deductibles and take a lower premium. Okay? Oftentimes, people like to have low deductibles, and that raises their premium over time. How many accidents are you getting into in a car accident every year? Please tell me zero, because I believe that we have a lot of safe drivers out here. What's happening is that if you're a safe driver, you don't get in accidents. when you're spending the extra cash flow for a lower deductible, and you have a higher for low deductible, you have a higher payment that's going out every day for something that's most likely not going to happen, right? And this is the importance of saving money and having that safety net of 3 to 6 months. Because if you have that safety net of 3 to 6 months of expenses in there, you then don't have to worry about that higher deductible that'll have to be. But at the end of the day, you're spending extra cash flow every month on something that's almost not happening. So that's a quick fix for you to increase the amount of cash flow that comes to you by absolutely doing nothing, but just reallocating how you structure yourself. So again, finding ways to be more efficient inside of to be more efficient inside of your means helps you live within your means, because you can find hidden cash that frees up your cash flow and frees up all the money that you've already made. Okay. Last thing I'll say about this is, like, say for example, if you had money inside of a CD gaining 4% year over year, and then say you had a credit card debt, right? So if you had $5,000 in CD, you had a $1,000 credit card debt, right? It might make more sense to liquidate your CD, pay off your credit card debt, because right now interest rates on your credit cards are about 29%. And so you're ending up spending a higher portion of your cash flow paying the minimum payments on the credit card versus the money that you're going to gain. So you're actually going to gain more, and you're going to actually gain more by liquidating that 4% and saving those 29% over time versus keeping that money and keep paying those minimum payments. You're losing money in all the extra late fees and all the extra balance X, Y, and Z. It may make more sense to do that, and again, you free up cash flow. So at the end of the day, becoming more efficient inside your means helps free up cash flow, helps you be able to live within your means. And then the last way that we can live within our means is to simply expand your means. So here's the thing. I've learned that luxury, once experienced, becomes a necessity. Okay? They also call it Parkinson's condition, right? So basically, Parkinson says that as your income increases, your spending increases as well. But we're not doing that because we know our four expenditures and we know to eliminate destructive spending. So, but at the end of the day, the key to us living within our means is to be more efficient and also expand our means at the end of the day. Okay? And I have that here. Boom. So, the next thing I want to talk about in mindful cash spending is your focus. You see, as we become more efficient living in our means, we become very focused, and our focus depends on where we are. So, once we've gotten past that super fat level of debt, what we then need to focus on is our financial infrastructure. Okay, so this is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So once you got into a moderate position, the recommendation would then be to focus on guarding against uncertainty. See, a lot of people say, "Well, Alex, I have this money. What should I do with it?" My first question is, are you guarded against uncertainty? See, a lot of people like to skip and jump to, "Oh, what investments can I invest in? What stocks should I get? X, Y, and Z." The problem with going to this level here, wealth creation system, so the stocks, assets, X, Y, and Z, is life be lifing. Like I said last week, if life happens, loss of job, loss of primary income bringer X, Y, and Z, oftentimes those assets that you bought will have to be liquidated. You have to sell them all to take care of your basic expenses. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to focus on spending after we paid our bills. The money left over should be focused on partly the living expenses. We want to manage those. Again, enjoy life along the way. But the focus should be on spending on guarding against uncertainty. So what does that look like? 3 to 6 months of liquid savings. Now, here's how I would recommend doing it. So recall last week I told you I don't do business with crackheads or junkies. Crackheads are the banks, junkies are the U.S. government. How I do it, I store most of my money inside of a whole life policy, whole life insurance policy, right? The insurance companies have trillions of dollars in liquid assets to cover all of their policy owners, every single one of them. If everybody died, they have enough money to cover all of that. The banks practice what's called fractional banking. So they don't have the money inside their banking system to pay everybody if they went to the bank. It's called a run on the bank that happened in the Great Depression. So I store X amount of money inside of my whole life policy. But then what I would recommend is this. When we're building 3 to 6 months of savings, I would store, say 6 months is the goal. I would store 3 months, maybe inside of a whole life policy. I would then break it down to having 1 month in cash, 1 month of expenses in precious metals, so gold, silver, and then 1 month in crypto. I like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, just as FYI. And the reason why I say to put those in there is because, say for example, you have a husband that ain't nothing and you divorce, or you go through, you getting sued, X, Y, and Z. If the banks want to freeze your assets in a traditional banking account, you're still liquid for 3 months. You still have the cash on hand. You still have gold, which you can liquidate in the market, and you also have crypto, in which you can use in an unregulated market. And this is why I also like to use my life insurance policy, because it's protected against liens, court orders, X, Y, and Z. So I can still pull out cash from there and still be able to spend it, borrowing against my death benefit. But that is week 4 and 5, so we're not going to cover that here. But I don't know if you saw a twinkle in my eye. I just love talking about that. Anyways, that's the first thing. Next thing I would say in your guarding against your uncertainty is to invest into life insurance, also invest into your estate plan, and also invest into your emergency preparedness. That should be your focus in getting there, okay? After this is fully funded, remember, we're not just saving to save. We then roll up to the wealth creation system. All of our money now, all of our extra money, once we got it here, once these are full, once these banks are full, will now go to the wealth creation system. So this system is looking at investing into cash flowing assets. So businesses looking to invest into real estate, X, Y, and Z. Now, an important thing to mention is when you're pouring money into your garden against uncertainty, you can still put money towards accounts that will fund this wealth creation. You can still do that. You can also invest into education. As a matter of fact, I highly suggest you invest into education while you're pouring money in here. So once you're ready to get to the wealth creation, you already have the education, and now you can dive fully into that and purchase the assets. So guarding against uncertainties first. After you fill those buckets up, then you're going to go to wealth creation systems. After you've filled your wealth creation system, so that means you bought enough cash flowing assets where the cash flow covers all of your expenses, you will then move into your growth strategies, which is your investor DNA, your asset protection, and your legacy plan. Basically what that says is this: how do I continue, how do I grow this money for the future generations? So you recall I told you about how individuals tell you to put your money in the stock market and use compounding interest, right? At the end of the day, using compounding interest is a piece of advice that I often get frustrated with, because they tell you to do it at the wrong stage. They tell you to do it at the beginning while you're unguarded against uncertainty. They tell you, just put money in there, don't worry, just take the risk, take the fall. That is unwise advice. Where it makes sense to do the compounding growth is when you put it in growth strategy. The compounding growth works, like I told you, 30 years from now. And so at the end of the day, it's perfect for building legacy for your family. That is when you want to use the compounding interest in the stock market at the growth strategy stage. At these stages, you need to have liquidity. You need to have liquidity. You need to be able to access your money to take care of life at these stages. Once these are done, once these buckets are full, then you can start putting money into the stock market without looking, because it's going to grow 30 years from now, and that'll be for your children and your children's children. That's not for you. We're not waiting. See, when we talk about this compounding thing, it's often talked about for a life of retirement. Use compounding interest so you can retire. No, we're not looking to retire and just sit in the wayside. No, we're looking to grow our money, live, enjoy life along the way, and then we use the compounding to work for our children, our children's children. So that's the way we focus in on how we spend our money. Okay? Now that we have the focused approach, we need to understand the types of accounts that we have to have. So there's 3 types of accounts that I would like you to have. 4 is a bonus. So the first account is your peace of mind account. What that peace of mind account, I like to call it, I call it the peace of mind account, but essentially what that is your emergency fund account. So when you have emergencies, X, Y, and Z, those 3 to 6 months of liquid cash goes inside that peace of mind account. The second account that I recommend having is called your wealth control or slash creation account. So what this account is dedicated towards purchasing your assets and your cash flowing assets in your business, your real estate, X, Y, and Z. Putting money there is also important. The third account you have is called your living wealth account. Your living wealth account is an account where you put a specific amount of money, say 3 to 5% of your money in that account. From that account, you're able to spend it on whatever you want to do without feeling guilt free, without feeling guilty. You can be guilt free in spending there. And then the last bonus account is called your charitable givings account. So I believe in tithing. That's just my thing. So I tithe. I give 10% X, Y, and Z. So understanding these accounts, and now let's talk about how we fund these accounts. So your peace of mind account, emergency funds account. When we talk about mindful cash management, right, and not budgeting, what I would like to see done is you to automatically, every time you get paid, automatically transfer 10 to 15% inside of that peace of mind account. I know you may say, Alex, I don't have 10 or 15% that I can transfer over there. I have bills X, Y, and Z. Come talk to the team. We can find ways to be more efficient inside of your means, so you can free up some cash, so you can start allocating more to that. But at the end of the day, put what you can. If you can only automatically transfer 1%, put it there. It may be only $1. It may be only $10. It doesn't matter. It's not the amount that matters in the beginning. It's the habit. It's the practice that matters. Because once again, as we become more efficient in our means, as we begin to expand our means, we'll be able to put more inside of that peace of mind account. But at the end of the day, aim to put 10 to 15% in there. Ideally, you want to put 15% of your cash in your peace of mind account, automatically transferred out of every check. The next one that we want to do is depending on where you are on the pyramid. So if we're assuming we're on the part where we're building up against uncertainty, the second thing you want to do is put 3 to 5%, automatically allocate that towards your living wealth account. Third thing you want to do is allocate 10 to 15% to your charitable givings account. Okay. As you get close to like the 3 months of expenses saved up, or as you get close to your savings, then we can start divvying up that peace of mind account to start taking some from here. So instead of like 10 to 15% here, we can start taking maybe 7% here and putting 7% into that wealth control account, right? But at the end of the day, we want to put 10 to 15%, ideally 15% here, 3 to 5% here, 10% here, automatically before you pay anything else. At the end of the day, I want you to make sure you pay yourself first. You are your greatest investment. Pay yourself first before you pay any bills. How do we open the account? So the account, all right, so this is what I would say. Your peace of mind account, I will open up a high yield savings account. So you can use any bank. You can use Ally, huh? A high yield savings account. Yeah, high yield savings account. You'll open that, and then you automatically transfer it there from your checking account that you get paid from. So high yield savings account here. I would say you would set a separate checking account for your living wealth account. This is a whole separate account. It automatically deposits there. And then your charitable givings account, you can use a checking account for that as well. But these are all separate accounts that has their own things, right? And these accounts, and then your wealth control account, again, for me and how I believe and how I operate, I use my whole life insurance policy as my wealth control account because I get a death benefit, but I also get to put money in there where it grows tax free. It's protected against taxes and liens, X, Y, and Z. I put money into there periodically, and I can pull money out of there. So I can simultaneously put things there. That is my preference. To each their own. But high yield savings account, checking. That's how I would do it. Okay. So once we understand the accounts we automatically put things to, we then need to understand your money personality or your money persona. The first kind is savers. You have people who love to save. Savers are good for generating wealth. Yes. The problem with savers are they oftentimes save too much, so they don't save with a purpose, or they operate in the scarcity mindset where they say, I can't do this, I won't do this because I have to save money. They're not enjoying life along the way. They defer life until that retirement phase. So for savers, the thing that saves them is having that living wealth account. You see, that living wealth account, remember, that is where I can spend money freely without feeling any kind of guilt, X, Y, and Z. So by putting money in your living wealth account, you're able to then say, you know what, I can spend this freely and not feel guilty for spending money. And that's why we have these specific accounts. Okay? The second money personality is spenders. I I have nothing good to say about them. I am joking. I am joking. So spenders are the kind of individuals that spend without. They just spend a lot of money. They like to enjoy life in the moment. They like to live life in the moment. So for spenders, the account that really is important for them is that peace of mind account. Because you're automatically taking 10 to 15% out, you can spend as much as you want as long as these are automatically filled, right? And of course, take care of your bills. Always take care of your bills. The third type you have are avoiders. These are the people who spend money without even looking at it. They feel frustrated. They feel scared. They just don't want to look at it. They don't want to address their financial things. For avoiders, what's important for them is to have a financial coach or a partner who is preferably a saver who can help them attain their goals. So again, avoiders has to have a financial coach to help them coach and guide them through this thing. Another kind is givers. Givers are great people. They have big hearts. Often, but the problem with givers is oftentimes their heart is so big they give so much and they give at the detriment of their own. And so that's why it's important to have a charitable givings account where you automatically put money inside of there. So now you can know how to stay in balance. So if you want to give, you can go right to that account and you know exactly how much I have in that account and how much I can give instead of just giving arbitrarily. Okay? So that's the importance of that charitable givings account. And then the last kind of a spender is what we call amassers. So amassers are people who are larger than life, who will fix their confidence and their identities in money. They make or they earn a lot of money, they spend a lot of money, they save a lot of money, they spend a lot of money, right? And their identity, all they do is think, and they think in terms of money. All they do is think about money. At the end of the day, for the amasser, having their mindset on having regular check-ins on their cash flow and how the cash flow is working is how we solve that issue there. But at the end of the day, we have to understand our money personas and understand which account will help us in managing our money personality. Another important thing is we have people who are in relationships who are couples X, Y, and Z. Your partner may be a spender while another partner might be a saver. And say, for example, we have somebody who's a spender, or sorry, let's do this one. We have somebody who's an avoider, and they see a ripe opportunity in real estate, right? And that real estate deal could make them money on the buy. It could make them a lot of money, but their partner is a saver, right? And they can say, you know what, honey, I would feel much more better if we saved and paid off the mortgage or did X, Y, and Z. After that, then we can do whatever you want to do. It makes, even though economically it would have made sense to go and purchase the real estate, at the end of the day, if your partner is a saver, I would advise, me personally, to fulfill that need, pay off the mortgage or whatever it is, or whatever goal the saver has. That way, the person will have peace of mind. Again, this is about wealth. This is just not about money, right? Again, at the beginning, I said, what purpose is it to have all the money, but you don't have wealth in your relationships, in your health, inside of your legacy, and also in your time? So at the end of the day, knowing what your partner's money persona is helps ease the money conversation. You understand each other's needs, and then you can find the middle ground to make a solid financial plan so you guys can both be at ease and move in unison and in harmony. 6 and 7 is all about accountability. So what I recommend is every week or bi-weekly, you sit with your partner and you discuss, okay, we've hit our metrics of peace of mind, living wealth, and charitable givings, and then you see how much we spend on everything else. So did we spend? Did we make any destructive expenditures? Did we do? How do we do on our lifestyle expenditures? How much do we allocate towards protective spending, and how much do we allocate towards productive spending. You see what's in and out of bounds, and you hold that person accountable. At the end of the day, the system for mindful management is really about automating these key things and us living within bounds, understanding our forward expenditures, understanding that we how to live within our means, becoming more efficient. But at the end of the day, it's all about automating these processes and tracking them over time and having intelligent conversations to mindfully manage our money. It's not about budgeting and looking for ways to cut money. Remember, life is meant to be enjoyed along the way. So if we're mindful and if we're intentional about, oh yes, reductionist thinking repels wealth. Cutting repels wealth. We actually need to increase how much money we put into our productive spending, and we need to also have a strict focus in each section that we're at. So after we finish getting our debt together, we can then focus in on how do we first build against uncertainty, how we then can invest into our cash flow, and lastly but not least, how do we invest into legacy. But it all comes again to automating the systems and having those check-ins. So that was the topic for today. Topics to come is using their money first, so understanding credit and leverage. And then we were talking about do as they do, not as they say, part one. So we're going to talk about the infinite banking concept, which is pretty much being your own bank. And then do as they do, not as they say, part two, which we're talking about the tools that we use for the infinite banking process. So I'm going to open up the lines now for questions in regards to mindful cash flow management or mindful cash management.
Going back to living within your means, you said there were three things. I got becoming more efficient in your means, meaning reallocate your funds and expand your means. What was the first thing?
The first one was the traditional way that we've all been taught, which is to cut back, to reduce.
Oh, okay, okay.
hmm So to live in your means is to reduce your living, to live within a certain confines, to be more efficient in your means, and that's the four I's, right? So the IRS, so looking for ways to be more efficient in our taxes, looking for ways to be efficient in interest rates, looking for ways to be efficient in insurance, and being efficient in our investments. And then the third one was to expand our means, so purchasing cash flow and assets to cover our expenses.
In purchasing our cash flow, the last one, what is an example of doing that so we're doing it the correct way?
Purchasing cash flow and assets.
Yes.
Uh, that so that all depends on your investor's DNA. So purchasing cash flow and assets could be investing into what they call IP, intellectual property. So what that means is you can invest into a subject to become a subject matter expert, or invest into a specific target, and then you simply create a book, right? You write a book, you sell the book, and then because people are interested in the value that you have in the book, they'll buy the book. It's a cash flow and asset. So you just write one time, put the book out there, they buy the asset, they're buying the books, and you just have cash flow flowing in from that. Another example would be in real estate, right? You can buy, and there's many examples in real estate. Here's one cool one that I've been looking at. So they have, they're instead of having to buy like a full house or whatever, they're now opening up tokenizations in the real estate market. So now you can, instead of having to buy a major portion in there, you can buy um, with crypto small portions of real estate, and you can help fund them buy real estate in that, and you can own a portion of that according to your crypto that you have. That's a real fun one as well. You can cash flow it as well. So that's new. That's a relatively new area that's out there. Yeah, yeah. Anything else?
Yes, this might be a silly question, but I'm gonna ask anyway. What is a high yield savings account? Like an example of that? Is that just an account that has like you get like a 5% return or something like that? Like what is that?
So a high yield savings account is an account where they're giving you a higher rate of return or a higher interest rate, but you're pretty much restricted in how you can use that account. So you're not going to be given a debit card typically. You're not going to be able to have as many withdrawals from an account. So you have maybe like a limit of like 5 withdrawals per month, X, Y, and Z. But in exchange for you putting your money into that account for the long haul, they give you a higher rate of return. So that's what they call a high yield savings account. You're not pulling money in and out of that account. Most of them are online. They don't have branches, X, Y, and Z. So that's why. Yeah, so it's less convenient. So they have less management fees. So that's why they can give you a higher rate. High yield savings account. There's no high yield checking. Yeah, I don't know if checking accounts pay. They
um,
a money
you
market
have to do
account.
like a money market account, and with some of them, they only give you so many checks that you can write in a period of time.
Correct. Yeah. Checkings accounts are just used for liquidity, for moving money back and forth. Your money markets, your high yield savings, and your CDs are the ones that are going to give you an interest rate in return for putting money in there.
So to go back to the list, like where we have the peace of mind account and the other account, should those all be um, high yield accounts, or should we have some high yield and some checkings?
Yes. So your peace of mind account, I like to have that one as a high yield account because I'm accumulating. I'll actually give you a strategy on one which I use actually. So I like to have a high yield savings for the peace of mind account. For the account that's for your wealth creation, I like to use life insurance policies because I get a benefit of having coverage in the event of death, but I also get to utilize my cash and I get to protect it. And so I buy assets from that account. For my living wealth account, I would suggest having the checkings account because your living wealth account is your account that you put money into that says it's okay to spend this, live and enjoy life in the present. So a checkings account is used for that because checkings account you're not taxed and penalized for all the transactions. And then for the givings account, you could do a high yield savings account. You could do a checkings account. um, I would use probably a checking account for the giving account.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry. For that, I was saying for the charity one, I would recommend using a checking account because even with the high yield, with the savings account, they only allow you so many withdrawals. And if you're a person that's constantly giving, you need to have it where you can get it without it being a penalty.
Right, and that's why you have to understand your money persona. Because if you, like you said, if you are a giver, if that's your money personality persona, you want to put it into a checking account. If you are a recovering miser, you may want to look at putting it into a, um, a high yield savings account because you're giving like a little bit. But checkings account would be, I mean, there's other ways in which you can use your charitable account to actually be tax advantaged. That's a different discussion for a different day. But yes.
We got a question in the chat. Which online bank would you recommend for a high yield savings account?
Oh, I like Upgrade. I use them. I like Ally as well. Um, I'm sorry, Bread Financial. Bread Financials heard is good. I like listen. I like American Express high yield savings account as well. They say that you may not be able to build a relationship with the credit card division, but that's yet to be seen. I like American Express too. They're really good. I have American Express too. They're good. Yeah.
With high yield accounts, should we be looking for accounts that have the highest interest for us, or what exactly should we be looking for, in
So
your
there's
opinion?
a couple of things I look for. I look for a high interest rate that's going to help combat against inflation. I look for how frequently I can have transactions in my accounts. I look at the limits that they place on your account. So some of them put limits of $5,000 can be traded at one time, X, Y, and Z. So I look at the limits that are on there, and I match those with my financial goals as well. That's why I really, really love the life insurance policy because you can take out as much as you want, but almost as much as you want. Be careful with that. But yeah, with that, I will look at again the frequency of being able to move your money. I'll look at the interest rates that they pay you, and I'll also look at the daily maxes they'll send as well.
Because some of them have where you can open up with a zero minimum, and then some of the high yields require you to open up with say like 5,000 and maintain. Because some of them have that if you don't maintain a certain balance, that you will lose the high yield interest rate. And so those are the things that you want to look at. I lean towards the ones that give me a zero minimum.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's really good.
Okay, I got a question about those of us who are stuck in the natural way instead of the freedom way.
Hmm.
How do we snatch our money and run?
Oh, you know,
You're probably gonna have to take a hit, but is it better to do it, before? Well, they already got their hooks in us.
it depends on where you are, and it depends. So I'll give you guys a story. So in 1913 or 31, 1931, 1931, there was this guy. He went to the dentist. He had a major toothache, right? And so when he went to the dentist, he said, "Man, my teeth are killing me." So the dentist put, the thing on him. They knocked him out. When he woke up, 16 teeth were missing. And then after that, he died a week later from complications, right? And so back during that time, the doctors were treating patients. They weren't treating patients. They were treating the disease and not treating the patients, even if it was good or if it wasn't good for them, right? They were treating they were treating the disease. Now we've moved to a place where we treat the patient and we give the patient options based off what's good for them and what's not good for them. So I said that story to say this. At the end of the day, how a person transitions from their current position to this all depends. Like I can tell you one way. It'll be like moving 16 teeth, and then you'll die financially because it's not your spending type. It's not your spending persona. It's not how you. It won't give you peace. It may make you rich, but at the end of the day, what will happen is you'll be so unwealthy in your relationships and your mind and your mindset, everything else. It wouldn't be worth it. What I would say is, if you wanted to change from that level to there to this one, schedule some time with me. We'll sit down and go through your scenario and build out a plan that's best for you because like I mentioned earlier, there's so many tools out there. There's not one tool, there's not one right way. So it just all depends on finding the right tool for you.
Because I want to simply take back what the devil stole from me.
So here's what I say. So like say for example, if a person was heavily invested into like the retirement plans, the 401ks, there's two options that there's many options you can do, but one option you can do would be you can cash out your 401k, cash it all out, but then at the end of the day, if you don't have an entity to counterbalance the taxes on there, you're going to be taxed. You're going to be charged a 10% penalty if it's beforehand. Then you're going to be taxed on it. It's going to be taxed, and depending on how much you have in there, you're going to be taxed at a higher rate. And it'll actually it'll rob you of all your cash flow that you save. It'll rob you of your safety accounts and your cash flow, and that probably wouldn't be it. But if you had a business and if you have a way to make it tax advantage, okay, then that strategy might be there. Or, or there's also a way in which we can also borrow against that to buy more cash flow and assets and then pay it off. So there's different strategies. Cashing it out could be one option. Borrowing against it could be one option. Like if you're in the stock market, they say, man, just sell your stocks and get your cash. I don't say that. People don't know this. Most people don't know this. And if you own stocks and if you own enough stocks, you can borrow against 50%, up to 50% of your stocks to use that to purchase other assets and other investments. So it all depends on where you are in the market. It depends on where you are in your life. It depends on what fits for you. If you're good with leverage, if you're good with it, okay, we can do one strategy. If you're not, we have to come up with something different. So again, talk to me and me and my team. will create a strategy just for you, what based off of your spending persona, based off of your investor persona, X, Y, and Z. Huh? Oh, is that me? Hello? Yes, I can hear you. Yes, yes. There's many strategies in which we can use to extract the money from there without causing a huge tax event. Oh, there was no question. It was just a comment. Hello? You still there? Is that it? Oh, geez, I pushed the button, Ray. I'm sorry, guys. I'm technologically challenged right now, even though I am a millennial. But yes, at the end of the day, there's many strategies in which we can use to put you into a position that is tax advantage. But at the end of the day, we have to understand what is your money persona, what is your spending type, what are the things that you have at your disposal, what are the things that we can put at your disposal to help you to move from your double from the traditional way and move you to the mindful cash flow spending. At the end of the day, what it's truly about is automating your accounts, automating the flow of funds to your account. So once those accounts are full, right, you pay the bills X, Y, and Z. You can spend all the rest of it while feeling worry free, and then meet weekly or bi-weekly to say were we in bounds on one of the expenses or we're out of bounds, and then we adjust from there. That's the ultimate way. Oh, gotta get cracking. Yes. Anything else?
I know you said the 7 steps to mindfully, spending your money.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second one was round out your expenses.
Yeah.
What are the categories for that?
Oh yeah. So write out your expenses are to write expenses. Those are the four expenses we covered. So your destructive
Okay,
expenses,
destructive lifestyle.
your lifestyle, your protective, and your productive expenditures. So what I suggest is doing this. So we'll take a look from 1 to 3 months back to just get some history of how you spent your money, right? And then based off of that, we'll see. Well, shoot, was I out of bounds or was this destructive spending X, Y, and Z? We categorize that. We categorize lifestyle, and we see how much we spend on productive and how much we spend on protective. Oftentimes, people are spending zero on productive expenditures. They're spending the bare minimum on protective, and they're spending a great expenditure on lifestyle and destructive expenditures. Excuse me. Yeah, a lot of times you're spending like most of the money there, and less to no money on the bottom two. We have to then look at ways for us to transfer that wealth, the money and cash flow down to the latter two, productive and protective, and also managing, like I said, managing a lifestyle. I'm not saying cut it. I want you to enjoy life along the way. So I know you may want to go on a cruise down to Trinidad, but hey, the ferry that goes to the Bahamas is $99 for a day. You can do that. You can still enjoy nice beaches, nice water, but it's not spending all the extra money. It's again finding ways to enjoy life, not necessarily always on the budget, but find ways to enjoy life within your means until you expand your means. Okay. So yeah, again, next week we're going to talk about use their money first. I want to introduce you to your lecturer for next week. So we have Pastor Mom. I mean Pastor Pam. Next week, Pastor Pam will be she'll be teaching credit, and then I'll be talking a little bit about about leverage. So leverage meaning how the rich and wealthy utilize debt in their advantage. You see, one of the biggest flaws, one of the biggest things that the church and that our people have been taught, which is in fact, which is actually incorrect, is this notion of being debt free. There's a such thing as good debt and bad debt, and we want to show you how to utilize the good debt in a way to expand your means. So I'll start off a little bit, and then Pastor Mom, she's going to be talking about the credit. So if you have any questions in regards to credit, please send your questions into LWNCC. It's on the screen, yeah. So send your questions in regards to credit, good debt, bad debt for next week, so we can have those on screen so we can answer those for you. Again, thank you so much for joining. Come to the couch and chat. You can send it to the chat, social media, as you please. Again, thank you for coming to the couch and chat, and I'll see you next week.